So now is the best time to have the local storage in this application. So for that, it's pretty simple. So the first thing we need to do is we need to have this dependency. So for that, like we will be using this Hive dependency. So you can say Hive Flutter. So we'll be using this Hive. So this is basically a NoSQL database for our local storage. So let's go to our pub spec and let's have that dependency installed. Just below this Flutter slidable, let's have Hive, and then we'll have this Hive of version 2.2.3, and also we need to have Hive Flutter, and this will be of version 1.1.0. In order for this Hive to work, we need to have few dev dependencies. So here we can have a Hive generator, and this will be of version 1.1.3, and also we'll have a build runner of version 2.1.11. okay, so let me close this. So you can always go and check the Hive documentation here, how we can install. So you can go to quick start. So you can always see we have this Hive Flutter, and then we need this Hive generator and a build runner. Cool. So now since we have Hive installed in our application, so let's go back to our main.dart. So we need to initialize our Hive project in our main.dart on top of the main function. So here we can use await, and here I need to init my Hive. So let me import Hive. Let me convert this to async Hive. So I think I need to import Hive from my Flutter. So I can say init Flutter. So this way we have initialized our Hive. And also after that I can create a box, and it will be basically await. Let's open a box, and let's name it LWP learn with Pratap. So with this we have initialized our box. Okay, and before we proceed any further, let's create a new folder here, data. So this is where we'll be handling all our data related things. So inside this data, let's create a file database.dart. Okay, here inside this database.dart, so this is where we'll be creating a model which will mimic the operations of that particular ToDo application, right? Let's create a class here. So I can say class ToDo database. Okay, and here let's create a to-do list. I can say list to-dos. So initially it will be empty, and here we need to have a few operations, right? So we want to have 3 operations, which will be basically creating an initial data, and also to load the data, and also to update a database. So I can say let's start with void create initial data. So here we can have a to-dos, which will be basically, so let me go back to my homepage.dart. So I can simply copy this and assign it to it, right? So initially, when I start my application for the first time, I want my application to have all these to-dos at least. Okay, and after that I want to load the data. So I can say void load data. So this will be called not the first time. Like if this first time, then we will be assigning this, and on subsequent times then we'll be using this load data. So we can say to-dos is equal to, so now this is the best place where we can use the Hive now, right? So let's use our Hive. So I can say final my box equal to Hive dot box. I think it should not be from the Hive Flutter, it should be from Hive dot, it should be box, and here I need to pass the name of the box, which is basically LWP, where I assigned in the previous file. If you go to the main, you can see we have this open box LWP, and now I can use this my box. Initially I can say my box dot get to-do list. Cool. So when we say load data, it will basically go and get this to-do list from my Hive. Hive is basically a key value pair, and when we update anything, I want to update my database. So I can say void update database. So let me rename this. So here in this case, what I want to do is I want to update my database, right? So I can say underscore my box dot should be put, and here the key would be basically to-do list, and the value would be basically the to-dos. Okay, so if you understand correctly, so we have this to-dos, it will be initially empty, and then we'll be initializing our box here. The name of the box will be learn with Pratap, and then here we have 3 different functions or methods. The first method is basically create initial data. So this function will be called when our application is open for the first time, And then we have another function method which is a load data. So this method will be called like when our application is not open for the first time, like on subsequent time, right? And also when we do any operations in our application, so in that case we want to update our database. So for that we have this update database method. So now let's go back to our homepage.dart. So we can remove these to-dos. So let's initialize our database. So here I can say to-do database, I can say db is equal to to-do database. Okay, and now I can remove these to-dos, and here I can have a init state, and here I can see if my database is empty. Like let's have a condition here. Let's say if. Also here I need to have the Hive. Let me go back to my database.dart and let me copy this and let me go back to my home page, and then here on top of this let me have this box. Let me import Hive. Okay, so now I need to check if my to-do list in this box is empty. So let me go back to my if. I can say if my box dot, here I can check if my to-do list is empty. Let me go back to my database.dart. Let me copy this here. Okay, so if this is null, that means it is empty. So in that case what I can do is I can create the initial data, right? So I can say create initial data. If it is not empty, then in that case I can say db.load data, right? So now instead of referencing the local to-dos, now I can use db.todos. Here also I can say db.todos. So here also I can say db.todos. Here also I can say db.todos, 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 db.todos. Okay, so now whenever I make any operations, like let's say when I checkbox changed or when I delete or when I save, I want my database to be updated, right? So in that case what I can say is after this I can say db.update database. So let me copy this. So I would need the same thing when I save a task, and also I'll be needing the same thing when I delete a task. So let me refresh. So it says box not found. I've opened the box in the main.dart. Let me stop and let me rerun this again. Let's wait until this is running. Okay, sorry, now it's running. So let's add a new task. So I can say load to do. So let me save. Let me delete this. Let me delete this. So let me open my application. So let me remove this. Flutter to do. Cool. So now we have only two data, right? So with this we have also established our Hive in our project, which is a local storage. So I'll be adding more about Hive in the upcoming videos. So I think this is it from this section. So see you in the next one.